And we kind of touched on this in our last podcast, but I think people think that the news that they consume is safe. So they think the other side's is biased, but theirs isn't. Or they think the mainstream media is biased, but not my Ben Shapiro or not my Young Turks. And I was just thinking about this, and it's like the media, to some degree, I truly think is an outrage machine or a sadness machine, and it's meant to manipulate you. And so like when it was convenient to have this outrage, I think because there was an election coming up, a lot of outrage came up. And then when Biden started to perform worse in cities that had riots, I think there was a dip in media coverage. And now that the election results are in, I haven't heard a peep about it. And that's interesting to me because it's not just what you see on the news, but it's what you see in the streets, which is to say suddenly all these people who are really concerned with police brutality aren't marching. You know, some are marching, some march every day in front of like Congress, but the amount of people marching is 1%.
Well, you know what's funny?
So like where
you wouldn't know if there was marches going on because if they don't cover the marches,
sure.
Like, and you can suffocate it that way as well. There can be a massive populist uprising that you're just like, not on my neighborhood or not in my street.
Yes. Which for me, but the whole, it isn't actually about Black Lives Matter at all. I was just thinking about it. I was like, wow, we are really at the whim of the outrage machine and the propaganda machine. And I think that if we think we know how big a problem is, like the amount of people being shot is the same today as it was 4 months ago, and it will be the same as it was a year ago or whatever until there's massive systemic change. But the amount that it weighs on people's minds is not in their control at all. And it's just really fascinating to me. It made me realize that I think we should all be a lot less certain with our views of like what we think is happening in the world.
Yeah. Well, of course, we're going to learn that over and over again. I saw an interesting thing. And again, I don't even know if this is true because it was a random thing on Reddit. There was Data is Beautiful. It was causes of death in America. Google searches for the 2016 of, related causes of death. New York Times coverage of topics and Guardian coverage of topics. And as predicted, heart disease, 30%. Invisible in the New York Times and invisible.
Yeah, no one is talking about how like what you're eating is killing you.
Cancer, 20%. We're at half of the Americans who die. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like I think it was 30 and 30.
Whatever. Cancer, interestingly, larger but still underrepresented.
Yeah.
Terrorism, like no one. Like terrorism, big thing. And it's obviously sensationalized, but this comes back to incentives. If you can ask yourself what incentives are driving this, the obvious answer is not the protection of Americans. It's
not saving lives.
It's not saving lives.
You would just try to change people's diets. You'd make a radical push
against
to make
refined sugars. Yeah,
have a massive tax and disincentive, make it too expensive to consume at the rate that we consume, and you would save so many more lives.
Well, if you, it's funny because if you look at it, you got heart disease, cancer, then like next is like diabetes. I mean, it's like diet, all the way down. And
I think you get to over 60% of deaths are diet.
Yes.
If you believe, which I do, that your diet contributes to heart disease and cancer.
Sure.
I guess if someone's going to say that heart disease and cancer are purely genetic, then me and them are just going to have a different discussion on the importance of nutrition.
But again, and everything you know about that comes from a book that you read and not looking through a microscope. So allow for yourself to be...
It's from just believing a small subsection of doctors and scientists. But like, if for whatever reason they were incentivized to lie about that,
well, guess what?
I would be misinformed.
Guess what, man? Publish or perish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, who's got a crazy thing to say? Because like power poses increase your testosterone all of a sudden. So yeah, and this is what John's video actually talks about. It's like the layers of bullshit that you have to wade through to eventually get to it. And to recognize that even your own psyche is not interested in the truth. It's interested in advantage. So like the way that I perceive everything in this room is like, I'm not even like, oh, like there's a coat laying on that thing. But first off, I separated it and I labeled it a coat because its use to me is in keeping me warm, not as like a piece of fabric or why am I separating the coat from the counter that it's on because they're touching and technically that would make it one thing. It's like, no, my use of a counter is to cut it on. And I'm just, everything I look at as utility to me.
Sure.
As do we all. So like, there's just like layer after layer after layer of not truth to go through. And it gets in the way, I mean, not only of you accessing the truth, but of starting a successful business or like planning your life so that you don't die because now like you've avoided every terrorist attack, but have been chowing down on Twinkies.
Every day you drink 7 supersized Cokes.
yeah.
But you avoid major buildings
Yeah.
because you want to make sure you avoid the next 9/11 target.
Exactly.
You're just going to get a heart attack sitting at home.
Yeah. So we've got a world full of people with, 7 or 8 layers of deception fog glasses on, all screaming at each other about how they're certain that the other people have got it wrong.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a hilarious state of affairs.
No, it actually, I mean, it constantly blows my mind, impresses me. I don't know the word. I'm always shocked at how convinced people are that the other side is a certain thing.
Yeah.
And the description they give is perfect for their side as well.
Yeah.
Like, these people are idiots who consume news from a certain channel and they're just sucking down propaganda and misinformation. Like, but that's probably true, but like also true of you while you're shouting this.
You know what I read something. It was an Amazon book review. Okay, so this is fascinating. So Douglas Murray, highly controversial guy who talks about how IQ and race are related and potentially like different amongst racial groups, which has scary implications if people don't want to look into it.
Doesn't necessarily say it's genetic. He literally just says that if you do studies, you'll see a difference in cohorts.
Well, I don't even know. I haven't even read his book, but I know because Amazon, he's got a new book that comes out next year that is specifically like talking about this. So anyway, I've not read his books. I know that he's a very controversial figure in the podcast world. That's all that I know. But I read a review of his. One was glowing, and the 1 star had a bunch of citations, and it was a takedown of this, Kaplan 1997, this. And it occurred to me, it's like, wow, what college teaches us about citations, well, I understand the intent. It's deeply unscientific because the way that everyone, I think probably even your thesis advisors read your thesis is they do not reference every single citation you make and then go to that book and then reference the citations they make and find the ground kernel of truth and research from which it all stems.
Yeah.
It's an appeal to authority over and over and over.
You're saying they just see the superscript number that is a citation. They go, oh, the sentence.
Oh, that's
is
a
true.
book that other people have referenced. And how do we know that it's true? It's got a lot of citations. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people say that I'm right too. Like, it's just a popularity contest masked as truth. And and if the foundational research is broken and everybody cites it, why does that make it any more true? And I don't have a better solution because I understand why this model would be made, because it's like, look, if a lot of people are checking it, we're kind of crowdsourcing and trusting, but that's not how truth works. And we know this because you weren't allowed to look through the telescope to see that, like, look, the moon has craters in it. It's not perfectly round and it moves in this way. And like, if you go with consensus, Apollo is pulling the chariot of the sun across the sky in a stationary world, and you just wind up nowhere with consensus. Somebody has to investigate the most deeply held truths that everybody agrees upon, and no one is doing it. But we have this believe the science mentality on both sides, by the way. On every side, they'll just reference some study that they don't understand. It's just a hilarious state of affairs where you're just screaming telling people to recognize your authority figures cloaked as scientific inquiry.
People do this all the time. It's so fascinating. They'll be like, a study shows, and the study is of 26 college kids.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
This isn't nearly enough people from nearly diverse enough population to tell us anything. But once it becomes a study, game on. Then everyone can just cite it.
I'd like to talk to someone from the hard sciences because I suspect that this stuff still happens in the hard sciences, but hopefully there's a closer recourse to what you want is a feedback mechanism that slaps you in the face when you get it wrong. So if you're launching a rocket based on math, based on theories that don't work, your rocket's just going to fucking explode. Yes.
Like, you have to get that right.
But if you get your politics wrong, people just suffer. You know what I mean? We've been doing that. We've been doing that for a long time.
Math is wrong. It costs him billions of dollars. But if your poli-sci math is wrong, you just get to profit from publishing a study, and people will just take the wrong conclusion and then live their lives.
Yeah. So the question is, are these feedback loops tight? Do they slap the person proposing it and not someone else? Like, all of these things are because what I can't do is function in the world distrusting everything that other people say and consensus. So I try to add a handful of these questions, like, how does their incentive structure work? What is their feedback loop like? Do they have skin in the game? and it hopefully helps. And yeah, it's I'm learning to do it better. But when I look at the beginning of our business, it cost us at least 2 years of just garbage teachers telling us to do guest posts, build someone else's audience. So don't have to do that one too much longer. I have a handful of other things.
Go for it. I have so much, but none of them's really
we haven't chatted.
sensitive.
So this coronavirus relief thing, it's going to be old news in 2 minutes,
Might not even pass.
But just into recognition to how some of the sausage is made, there was included in it that streaming, the broadcasting of my brother constantly is just watching NBA games that I don't think we pay for. He's like, I can't get my streams.
Yeah.
And so he looked it up, and there was a provision written into the coronavirus relief package that is streaming is now a felony. Like for streaming providing streaming for commercial profit is now a felony.
Providing streams, not illegally streaming in the way that you would like watch something
receiving.
as a consumer. Yeah.
But what's I think is it's like, sure, maybe, I don't know, but can we put that in the streaming is a bad bad
that was
act?
my sense. I was like, people were kind of outraged about it. I'm like, I'm not even sure I'm opposed to this bill. If it were just itself, like it's illegal to provide illegal streams, I think I'm actually okay with that. But it seems weird that you couldn't, if you're a congressperson, you couldn't sign the stimulus bill without passing that part of it. Like to take that part out would require discussing it and
just ludicrous,
removing it and voting on it. And so like you couldn't get people or companies their stimulus in a timely fashion unless you just accept that that's going to become a felony.
So what I take in is that somebody who that matters to, which is Disney or Netflix, I don't know particularly who,
for sure,
gets to write these things, and that person does not have the interests of, perhaps their company is included, and maybe it's a good thing, but it's certainly not something that the majority of people care about in their coronavirus stimulus.
Well, if AOC is to be believed, I think they got this thing like 2 hours before they had to sign it or not sign it. And if you don't sign it, it doesn't get ratified.
You don't get any money.
It goes back to the drawing board. Basically, you have to like re-ratify a new bill.
So
and she's just like, I would have to read 40 pages. I forget, it was like 40 pages in a minute or something.
Yeah, it's crazy.
She's just like, this isn't, I'm being asked to vote blind on a thing that has so many like sub bills that I don't understand.
So in any event, I'm disenchanted with politics. That's kind of where I land on that is, please leave me alone as much as possible because I don't like this thing. I don't like how it works.
You're saying you're skewing towards a government that bothers you less because
I'm not even skewing towards a government that bothers me less. I'm like, I want to not be like.
Do you mean talking about it or you mean being
Who am I going to vote for? Who am I going to vote for? Some guy that says that he won't do this? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like he says that he's not going to be a piece of lying, manipulative. Like it's just so removed. And what I just, I don't know how to do it, but I was just, okay, sausage is made in a really gross way again. That's all. Sure. That's all.
No, I saw the same thing. And honestly, I don't even know if I think it's a bad law to pass. I just don't understand why we didn't look at it individually. It seems weird to package it all together.
Yeah. Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.